Also in the mix this week has been the showcasing of 4 of the Mets' top pitching prospects this past weekend. On Friday, Blade Tidwell came in relief for Luis Severino, running into some hard luck, going an inning and 2/3 with 4 hits, 3 earned runs, 0 walks, 4 strikeouts on 39 pitches. Tidwell's fastball sat at 94 to 95 and topped at 97, displaying a new 6-pitch kitchen sink arsenal, registering 7 total whiffs and 7 chases. And on Saturday, Christian Scott came in relief of Jorge Lopez, going 1 inning with a hit, an earned run, a walk, and a strikeout on 20 pitches. Scott's fastball set at 94 to 95 and topped at 96, registering 5 total whiffs and 2 chases. And in relief to Scott, Mike Vasil took the mound, going 1 inning pitched, 1 hit, 0 earned runs, 0 walks, a strikeout on 19 pitches. Vasil's fastball sat at 93 to 94 and topped 95 miles an hour, showing off his new sweeping action slider with RPMs over 2,400 and registering 3 total whiffs and 1 chased. And on Sunday, Dominic Hamel took the mound in relief, going a third of an inning, 0 hits, 0 earned runs, 1 walk, 0 strikeouts on 10 pitches before his outing was cut short due to a rain delay. Hamel's fastball sat at 92 to 93 and topped 95 miles an hour, showcasing his explosive breaking stuff and registering a whiff and a chase. With their major league debuts anticipated in the near future, Tidwell, Scott, and Hamel are 4 of the Mets' highly regarded pitching prospects, along with other names such as Tyler Stewart and Justin Jarvis. I think that we can probably push Dominic Hamel to the side because we didn't really see much of him, but there is some results that we did see from him via StatCast, via some pitch grading that I think was pretty interesting. As for the stuff plus scale, obviously that's something that we like to look at, with overall projecting for starters. We saw a fairly above average results from Dominic Hamel. Now mainly for just 10 pitches, his curveball and his fastball both at 110, which is like a near elite level, a 102 graded cutter. We also had his slider as well. I mean, he has a good selection of pitches, and I think that one of the main problems with him is the stuff is fantastic. The control is an issue. The command can be a little bit spotty at times, but I'd say that the control is definitely a problem with him, and that's probably something that could keep him from being a starter in the major leagues. But at this current moment, pretty good in the 10 pitches that we saw.
There's been a big narrative that the Mets have no pitching prospects. And I feel like the more you research, the more you figure out, maybe that's not the best description, because guys like Dom Hamel and Christian Scott are 2 guys who, to me, intrigue me the most. They have wipeout stuff. In terms of longevity, Christian Scott has the way better command as of now. And Scott, I think, genuinely could be the next frontline guy that comes out of our farm system. There's just so many things to like about his arsenal, about his release point, his stuff. But with Dom Hamel, he has really, if he pans out, he'll have one of the nastiest fastballs of any starting pitcher, to be quite frank. Like, he might not top out as at high velocity, but in a similar way to Christian Javier, his fastball has unbelievable rise. And you're going to miss a lot of bats that way. Scouts have described his fastball as reaching up to 20 inches of rise, which is absolutely elite. And with these stuff gradings, we're seeing that pan out. So if Dom Hamel can really command his pitches, we are going to be looking at a very interesting pitcher, especially if he can last as a starter. And with Christian Scott, I've always been a huge fan of him. I think there's a lot to be encouraged by with our pitching prospects. That being said, I would have liked to see more out of Blade Tidwell. I feel like the big overarching consensus by scouts is that he's has a great arsenal, that he is electric stuff. The early results that came out from his spring debut, regardless of the results, showed that Tidwell actually had fairly below average stuff. And
yeah, it was weird, very odd. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was pretty clear that his release point was really high, but he wasn't getting much rise out of that release point, which is why a lot of people opt for that really high release point, like Justin Verlander, who gets unbelievable rise on his fastball still to this day. Blade Tidwell was not getting that. I think I might have to temper my expectations for his upside as a starter. I'm not writing him off in any way. I still think he has a deep arsenal. He still for sure could become a back end guy. But I'm not sure I'm convinced yet that he has that frontline potential that when he was drafted, a lot of us thought he did, because if you remember, he was drafted in the second round, I think, and the consensus was that he was a first round talent with injury history. So it's going to be very interesting to see how Blade Tidwell progresses. But I think if we're looking for the next Mets ace, I feel like Christian Scott is definitely the most likely one, and not too far behind him. I feel like Dom Hamel has some pretty good potential to be an important rotation piece.
As for all four of these guys that were featured, whether it's Hamel or Vasil or Tidwell or Christian Scott, all of them throughout their years in the Mets system, they've been here for a couple of years now. I think Tidwell had his first full year last year. They all have gotten better, and they've continued to progress through the minor leagues. All of them, I believe, have all made it to Double-A, which is, I think that mainly you're looking at, maybe a year or two in that range for all four of them, some before others. The main impression I always got from Blade Tidwell was he's always wild. He's always wild. He's all over the place, but he has electric stuff. I kind of see it with how electric the breaking stuff is. The fastball is a little odd for me because I think that it has some life to it, but then there's also some really uncompetitive ones that I don't even know if he can tunnel those things through the zone at all. And it's very odd for me because he is an explosive arm. There's a lot of uncompetitive pitches there with him where it gets you a little bit concerned. I mean, I always compare him to a young Michael Kopech as to where before the velocity jump, obviously, but he just has some of these uncompetitive pitches. Sometimes they don't get to the zone. Sometimes the pitch sequencing is just off, but the explosiveness is definitely there from top to bottom, from fastball all the way down to curveball. And he definitely was able to put that on display, obviously, giving you 39 pitches, 16 fastballs, 7 sliders, 5 changeups, 4 cutters, 4 sinkers, and then he also gave you 3 curveballs. So the depth is there, but you just kind of need to, I don't know if it's just be patient or you just expect him to be kind of a late bloomer or something. The overall consistency, we still do need to see it. But we have definitely seen him go length, which is really impressive throughout his minor league season last year. As compared to Hamel and Vasil and sometimes Scott, he was going deeper into games, Tidwell, which was pretty impressive as compared to all the other guys who we've had through the system this year. If you want to add Vasil, because Vasil is such a...
I think it's pretty well established that his ceiling is a 5.
Yeah,
and
of course.
He's going to be one of these back-end depth guys that any team would love to have. But, in terms of analyzing, pitching prospects, he isn't a guy who's going to jump off the page. But, back to Tidwell, there are guys who have below average stuff grades, but still manage to get strikeouts. A guy like Shane Bieber, especially in his peak. So Blade Tidwell still generated a lot of strikeouts in Double-A.
He has,
which is against a really good talent. And so maybe also it was the first start of spring training, his first live action against opposing batters. So there could be a lot of room to grow there. But I would like to see more from a stuff perspective from Blade Tidwell. So I'm not closing the door on him at all.
I got to see Tidwell live when he was in Brooklyn. I definitely saw, let's say, there was some wildness there. But I would say that the wipeout slider was there. He was, mowing down hitters with that wipeout slider, but there were definitely some uncompetitive pitches. So I think that there is a little bit of a consistency route to it. But again, there is still a ceiling for him. Again, pitchers are a lot different. He may be 23 as of right now, but there's a possibility that maybe he does not hit that stride until 28, 29. Like, there is a possibility where that happens, because I think that the stuff's there. I think that it's definitely there. It's just basically just applying it to be a consistent starter that is continued to elude him a little bit, but still gets those swings and misses where he can go deep into games, which is very impressive. Now, as for Christian Scott, I think we can rave about this guy a little bit more, comparing him to the trajectory of like some of these major league pitchers. The shape is there, or, maybe if there is some trouble like going distance in the games and then he finally hits that stride. I mean, we've talked about the comparison of Zach Wheeler before to Christian Scott. I mean, I think that there's a solid comparison still there to him and Zach Wheeler, which is very encouraging, because I'm pretty sure Zach Wheeler at one point in his younger stages of his career, he was getting some decent comparisons to Garrett Cole. So, I mean, that is quite a ladder to look at with Christian Scott. Now, again, we still need to see a little bit more from him, but I think that it was a encouraging outing for him. And, I mean, the season last year that he had, dominant. I mean, near dominant. The man was robotic. I mean, just mowing down hitters, walking no one. In his debut, he had ones across the board. But again, I mean, he was very impressive last year, basically coming out of nowhere. He's going to start off in AAA. So again, like Stearns has said, phone call away. But I think that he's going to get his footing. I think you'll get his debut this year. I do think that you will see him debut, maybe a little bit later, maybe when they're out of the race or whatever, in a little bit more of a fluctuated hitting environment, such as AAA, which is very hard to judge. But if we get a decent sample there, we'll see kind of what we're going to maybe get at the major league level with Christian Scott.
I think a really good comp for Christian Scott, I'm not saying he's going to be as good as this guy, but this is a guy he has admired his whole career, and that's Max Scherzer. His fastball profiles very similar to Max Scherzer's, but Scott actually, like I was talking about, his vertical approach angle is a lot better. It's a lot better and is going to generate more whiffs. I
love his slot in general, Scott.
Yeah.
Like, I just love it. Yeah. I love the angle he comes from. Yeah.
But Max Scherzer genuinely has a lot of similarities to Christian Scott, and that's a pitcher that he's modeled his game over. They both throw from a really interesting slot. But the thing about Christian Scott is that he takes advantage of the slot better than Max Scherzer does, in the sense that his ball crosses home plate at a better angle to generate whiffs, like we talked about, vertical approach angle. And also for the slot he has, the inches of rise that he gets on his fastball is very above average for that slot that he has. So there is so much to be excited about Christian Scott. He has great fastball RPMs. He has great RPMs on a slider. He's working on new pitches. I think his changeup. Wait, let me make sure he had a good changeup last year, right? Or was it a curveball?
I think he had to add a changeup or something.
Didn't it work pretty well?
Something like that. I don't know. They said he was only like a 2-pitch guy for a majority of the season. The fastball shape is good, and I was also impressed by the cutter as well, too, because I did not expect it to be as explosive as it is, because I thought that the cutter was like, low 2,300 RPM. Like, this guy's almost pushing 2,700. I mean, this is something that could be like a fantastic hard bridge pitch that can also get you whiffs. Like, now he only threw 4 of them, but then I also got to see some replays of him actually throwing the cutter in games. And I was pretty impressed with it, now that I'm knowing, like, maybe this is like 2,600 RPMs here. Like, this is pretty impressive. It looked like they were reading a lot of sinkers for him, which I think that it's the same thing personally, because it looks like it's the same thing getting added up with his fastball. So I don't know. StatCast has been weird all week. So very impressive pitcher. There's so much upside there. And you heard it here first. He's Max Scherzer. So there you go.
Also, I'm really confident with a guy like David Stearns, working him up into the MLB starters workload. We've seen him do this with 3 aces already: Freddie Peralta, Corbin Burns, and Brandon Woodruff. He brought him up to the majors and had him pitch in relief like 3 innings at a time, which really eases you into the MLB workload and to MLB hitters. But it's a great way to ease you into the rotation, especially a rotation that has a lot of pitchers kind of slotted in. I think that David Stearns knows what he has here, and I expect him to take the same course of action that I took for the Brewers' 3 aces that they did have before the Corbin Burns trade, and they did bring back Woodruff. Yeah, I'm so excited about Christian Scott, and it truly has not felt like we have a genuine shot at getting a frontline starter from our farm system that we haven't had since that 2015 monster head rotation. Definitely, let's hope that Christian Scott works out.